All right, welcome back to the Lexicata Getting Started video series. In this video, we're going to go through how you can import contacts into Lexicata from a spreadsheet. So a lot of you may use other software, such as another CRM or a case management system, even Outlook. Just about all of these programs will allow you to export your contacts to a CSV file. CSV stands for comma separated values, but it's basically just a standard spreadsheet like an Excel file. So I'm going to go ahead and show you, first of all, how to set up the spreadsheet with the proper formatting so that it can import into Lexicata. And then also I'll show you how you can import the contacts and how easy it is to create a bunch of contacts in bulk by using a spreadsheet. So I already have a spreadsheet file ready to go. So let's just go ahead over here and take a look. And I want to point out some of the important characteristics that you need to understand about these spreadsheets in order to import properly. So if you don't have your spreadsheet configured in the right way, Lexicata may not be able to read it, or it might create things in a format that doesn't make sense. So it's really important to structure your spreadsheet appropriately and get all your data cleaned up before you ever try to import it into Lexicata. Our importing system is really powerful, but it's not magic. It doesn't have the ability to, interpret what is supposed to be what in your spreadsheet. You have to basically clean up the data and get it in the appropriate format so that our system can read it. So let's go through and I'll explain some of the important things you need to understand. First of all, let's talk about the name. You'll notice here I have 3 different columns for first name, middle name, and last name. So in Lexicata, when you create a contact, those are separate fields. Our database requires first name, middle name, and last name to be separate, basically like cells in the database. So if you had a spreadsheet that just had full name and you typed out John Richard Doe, our system would not be able to create a contact out of this because it requires both the first and last name in order to import. So you do need to break up those fields, if you have them all in a full name field, into separate fields so that it will map to our database correctly. So that's that for the name. Also be aware that both first and last name are required. If you had one of these blank, let's say I just had Diane with no last name, nothing would be created from this entire row. So you have to have a first and last name in order to create the contact at all. Once the contact's created, it'll update with all the additional contact info, but that's sort of the prerequisite to creating a contact upon import. The other thing I'm going to point out here quickly, this is only relevant for Clio users, but it's important to understand. If you exported your contacts from Clio in order to import into Lexicata, you need to make sure to use the Clio ID in the spreadsheet. And basically what that is, it's a unique identifier. I think it's actually called unique ID in the Clio export. It's basically a string of numbers that is unique and will identify each contact to distinguish it from other contacts in your Clio account. So the reason this is important is because Lexicata uses that Clio ID to know that a contact already exists in Clio. So when you try to export something back to Clio from Lexicata, if it already has a Clio ID saved in our database, Lexicata then knows that this contact already exists in Clio. So it won't duplicate or make a new contact. Instead, it will update the existing contact that matches that Clio ID. So if you import all your contacts from Clio, but you don't map the Clio ID to our database, Lexicata won't know that those contacts already exist in Clio, and you'll end up with a bunch of duplicates. So this is just an important step. Make sure you have your Clio IDs for each contact in the row, and make sure that those get imported into Lexicata so you don't get duplicates. Okay, so let's go through some of the other columns here. So everything that's in the row with the first and last name will be added to that contact. So Diane Carlson will be imported with a contact type of client, a lead source of Avo, email address right here, so on. And you can have blank fields. It's not a big deal if certain contacts don't have certain information, unless it's their first and last name. Those are the only required ones. So just make sure everything's appropriate. You have their cell number here. You don't have a home number or a work number. That's totally fine. The other thing is with the address, similar to the first and last name, it needs to be broken up into separate fields. So street, country, city, state, zip code, those all need to be separate fields or columns in the spreadsheet. You couldn't just have one column here with their full address in it. Lexicata won't be able to read that. It would be able to just put it all into the street address field, but you're not going to be able to use that data very well later. So it's just not going to work for other purposes within Lexicata when you import that way. So make sure those are broken up into separate columns. The other things here at the end, these are not required, but you do have the ability to import matters along with the contacts. So in order to do that, the only column you have to add to the spreadsheet is a matter type column. So in this case, I put two matter types. I left this middle one blank. And remember, because most of the functionality of Lexicata revolves around the matters, at least regarding the intake features, the intake forms, and the e-sign documents, those are all attached to matters. If you're importing a spreadsheet of leads or potential clients, or even existing clients, you might want to create a matter at the same time so that you have a place to store all the details about their case or their lawsuit or their matter. So you'll notice here for this contact, I left this blank. And the reason I did that is because you'll notice my contact type here is attorney. So this is an instance where this is not a client or a potential client. I also left his lead source blank because, as I mentioned previously, the lead source, if it's left as unassigned, it will not factor into your reporting or statistics. So in this case, if I'm importing an attorney contact who's not a client or potential client, I want a lead source of unassigned, and I want to make sure to leave the matter type blank so I don't create a matter for him. All right, and you can also, if you want, have things like matter status and so on, but those are not required to create a matter. The only thing that's required to create a matter is this matter type, and it would add it to the default matter status, whatever that is in your account, automatically if you didn't override it by putting a separate matter status column. Finally, tags. You do have the ability to import tags. The thing to be aware of here is that if you want to have multiple tags on a contact, you can't do it in multiple columns. You need it in one column, and you can use a semicolon to break them up. So in this case, I would be creating two different tags, one bankruptcy, one VIP. You can't use other characters, so if I had bankruptcy, comma, VIP, this would create one tag with bankruptcy, comma, VIP as the name of the tag. So just be sure to use a semicolon to divide up your tags like this. That way you'll get two separate tags added to this contact. Okay, so that's an overview of how to set up your spreadsheets. We have a template that we can provide to you if you need more information about this, or if you want to use it as an example to start your spreadsheet, you can totally do that. But just be aware how our system reads data, and that it's really important that you get your data cleaned up and in the right format in your spreadsheet before you try to import to Lexicata. Otherwise, you're just going to end up with a bunch of junk that you're going to have to delete and redo later. Okay, so moving back to Lexicata now, let's go ahead and we'll go to the settings page. And in order to import, you would go to your contact settings. So you'll see down here at the bottom, import contacts, there are two options to import. You do have the ability to import from Clio, but this is only for an individual contact, like one contact at a time. So the purpose of this video is to show you how to import in bulk, in which case you would need to use a spreadsheet. But just to explain sort of how the Clio import works, if you had an existing client that's already in Clio but not in Lexicata, this is a good option. What you can do, you click this button, you can basically search for a contact by name from Clio. So if your client's name is John Doe, you click the button, you type in John Doe, it will find any John Doe contacts from Clio, and you can basically import them as an individual contact into Lexicata and create a matter for them. It's a good way to do it if you don't want to duplicate the contact later. You'd want to go ahead and use this import from Clio option. But the limitation is it's only one contact. So let's go ahead and go now through the spreadsheet import, and I'll show you how you can import contacts in bulk. And notice it says Excel or CSV. CSV is a comma separated value, is what that stands for. It's basically the same as an Excel file, just a slightly different file format, but any kind of standard spreadsheet that's Excel or CSV should work. So click the button here. It's going to take you now to the import contact page. A couple things to be aware of. At the top, you'll notice it's sort of a three-step process. Step one is to upload the spreadsheet. Step two is to map the fields. And step three is just to review everything and confirm that your spreadsheet was imported properly. So the other thing here, just to be aware of, it's highly recommended that you only import batches of 2,500 contacts at once. If you try to import 100,000 contacts or something like that, there may be issues. That's a lot of processing power for our system to handle at one time. So it is advised to break up your spreadsheets into batches of 2,500 and import each one individually. So just be aware of that. And if you need help dividing up your spreadsheets or anything like that, you can contact us. Okay, so to get started, simply click the button that says select a file and you'll choose that spreadsheet you created from your computer. Right. And it should, when it gets attached, it should say the name of the file right here. You'll see mine's a CSV. And then just click the continue button. So on the left-hand column, you'll see a list of spreadsheet fields. So Lexicata reads your spreadsheet and it basically lists out all the column headings in this left-hand column here. So Clio ID, first name, middle name, last name. You'll see on my spreadsheet, Clio ID, first name, middle name, last name, and so on in the exact same order. So it basically takes each column and puts the name of the column heading here on the left side. On the right side, you have your Lexicata field options. So each row here in this table has a drop-down menu, and basically you simply map the column to the corresponding field in Lexicata. So pretty simple process. Clio ID, you simply click here, and you can type in if you want to search to make it easier, but there it is, contact field Clio ID. So just go through each one, first name, middle name, last name. And it's a good idea to name the columns something that is easy to recognize so you know which is which. If, for instance, you just had email address 1, email address 2, email address 3, it might be hard. You don't know which one's home, which one's work, which one's, and so on. So I like to name the column something that's very clear what they're used for in Lexicata. All right, just go ahead and finish these up. Contact type, lead source, email, home, email other. The other thing to be aware of is that for the address, make sure you're using the same type of address for each field. If you had multiple addresses, you could, but just make sure, in this case I only have one, but if I did this one home, this one work, this one billing, it would create 3 different addresses and you'd only have one data point for each one. So make sure those all match up in your mapping. Okay, and finally matter and tags. So there are some other fields, just so you know, that you can use in your spreadsheet. I didn't have these in mind, but if you scroll through this list, these are all the possible fields you can use. You'll notice you can even do custom fields. So if you want to create custom fields in Lexicata, like I have date of birth and all the, driver's license number, things like that, those can be imported as well if you want to, in addition to other matter fields. So the status, location, description, estimated value, or even the matter label. Any of that stuff can be imported if you want. You would just want to add those columns to your spreadsheet and map it accordingly. So just keep that in mind. You also have matter custom fields at the bottom there as well. Okay, so probably good idea to just double check that everything's correct before you do it. Again, if you mess this up, it's going to create a bunch of contacts in your account that are not going to be correct. So double check, make sure everything looks good, and then when you're done, click import contacts. So depending how many contacts you have, this step might take a while. You'll see a little progress bar. In this case, I only had 3 contacts, so it's really fast. If it takes a really long time, our system will allow you to basically navigate away and we'll send you an email when the process is done. So if you had a few thousand contacts, it might take a while, but we can just notify you by email when the import's completed, and you can continue using Lexicata in the meantime. But in this case, I'm already done because I had only 3 contacts. So at this point is the review step. You'll see they're all listed here. My 3 contacts, just their names and emails. It doesn't show you everything that got imported, but everything did actually get imported. So you may want to leave it on this screen. And what I like to do is just click on a couple of them and go to their contact page and make sure everything looks right. So let's go to Diane here. You'll see the type came in as client. Her lead source is Avo. She didn't have any tags. She has an email, a phone number, and an address. So everything looks good for her. And she also has a matter, which was a DUI matter, and it came in under newly added as the matter status because I didn't have a matter status, and that is my default. So that looks great. Everything looks fine for that one. And you don't necessarily have to check all of them, but you might want to check one or two just to make sure, again, that everything looks good. So, and here we go, those tags. Remember, I had tags. In this case, bankruptcy and VIP, two different tags. I believe bankruptcy was a newly created tag in my account because it defaulted to the color of blue. So if you just import new tags that don't exist, they'll always be blue. Keep that in mind. However, I did already have the VIP tag created. And in that case, it's not going to duplicate, it's going to match the existing tag. So it just assigned the existing VIP tag, which happens to be green. So this one looks great as well. He's an attorney, he's unassigned, everything looks fine. So I think I'm ready to confirm. If, let's say you made a big mistake and you accidentally put their address and their phone number and their first name and last name are backwards or something like that, what you can do at this point is check this box to mark every single contact and click remove. That will go and mass delete all of them. You'd want to do that if you made a big mistake like that and just kind of start over. But if you don't do that, you just click done and that's it. You're completely finished. And if you go to your contact index here, there's my 3 brand new contacts at the top. So that pretty much wraps up how to import contacts into Lexicata. Hope you enjoyed the video. In the next video, we'll be showing you how to create tasks, appointments, and how to manage them on the agenda page. So thanks so much for watching this video. We'll see you next time.